Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Come on in to the virtual classroom. Hopefully you're already situated in your chairs. Let's start getting some of those cameras on, please.
D,
What's going on, Wood?
what's good morning? What's going on, everybody?
There we go. Love it. Wood
It's
bringing
time to
the
do
energy on
this. Yeah,
Saturday
it's time
morning,
to
right?
do this. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get some information. That's right. All right. I see some other familiar faces. Dr. Session, how are we doing today?
I'm good, DeAndre. And guess what? I got my first A in law school.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
let's
Congratulations. What
go.
class
That's
was
what
it
I'm
in?
talking about.
I finished with my best semester, my second year, 3 semesters ago. I'm on fire. I'm ready.
That is awesome. And you're not taking the bar yet till July, next July,
2026, actually. So I'm planning ahead.
2026. So look, everybody in here, whether you're currently taking the bar, coming up soon, I always tip my hat and give, that pat on the back to the person putting in that extra work. So yeah, we're not even taking the bar for some time and you're in here ready to learn. So it's always good seeing you. I'm glad you made it.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I see maybe some new faces too. Carla, new face is your first time in one of the Legally Fit BWL Langston events?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. So where are you at right now in your bar prep journey?
I am taking the July bar. So
Okay,
I
look,
am just getting to evidence. Well, just finishing evidence for my thesis course.
I can tell by the energy level, the whole mood is different. Like, yeah, I'm in this thing right now. Look,
Yeah,
like
I'm in the thick of it.
I'm in the trenches. No, I hear it. It is a trench. Okay. So as a representative of somebody in it, and we'll do a little bit more of this. We're just going to do a quick little 5 minutes, let everybody come in before we do our official introductions, everybody. But yeah, Carla, give us just a little bit. How's it going? How's your studying going? How are you feeling throughout this right now?
Um, I think it's going okay. I think I'm at the point where I'm realizing where some deficiencies are between the programs or supplements that I'm using and trying to figure out kind of where I need to reevaluate, using self-reflection, making sure that I'm actually doing purposeful learning and not just kind of like mindlessly going through videos and MBEs and things like that. And so it's a lot of self-reflection and just trying to like readjust, reevaluate for the halfway point. That way, when the halfway point comes, I don't feel like I'm running around with a chick in my head cut off, even though I already kind of feel like that.
Yeah.
So
I
just trying to keep
mean,
my sanity.
I cannot tell you how, one, just if it gives you any comfort, how common of a situation that is. I'm not sure if you're familiar again with the Legally Fit Bar Prep, but yeah, I was in your shoes maybe about 10 years ago, and I literally started Legally Fit because of that feeling you're saying right there of just like, I'm taking this big box company, and it's just like, I feel like I'm just, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to figure out what to do. And I don't feel complete with what I'm receiving. So now I'm
Mhm.
having these supplements, but now it's too many supplements. So you're kind of in the, in the deep end, right? Of just trying to charter these waters that you haven't before and figure it out. And I really appreciate that approach that you're saying of, I'm trying to figure it out now and quick, so that way I can get into a steady flow by that midway point. So obviously today's going to be a big focus on MBE, but overall I'm here to support you guys in any way possible. So everybody, I want you guys to take a moment too. And, for all those here, I want to try to tailor this session to be the most valuable as possible. So I'm gonna do the introductions, but write down anything that you're going through, and I'll revisit this of like what else you might like out of this session while we're here. So any other questions unrelated to MBE and things like that, write that down, and we can address those at the end. But thank you for sharing that, Carla. All right, so it's 11:05, so let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Road to Esquire. This is an awesome series of events put on by BWL and Langston Bar Association in association with Legally Fit, where we are committed to the success, right, of our community in getting over this hurdle with the bar exam. And so in this session, we are covering MBE. And like I said, anything else I can do within our time frame to support. And before we get into that, we do have some representation from Langston MBWL, so I can give you a few words about their organization and maybe a little message. So I'll pass it over to Sade from BWL.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sade Scahan, and I am president-elect of BWL. My presidency begins on October 1st. I first wanted to give a plug for both Langston and BWL. Even though you are still in law school or maybe you just graduated, I highly recommend getting involved in both organizations because it's nice to make the legal community feel a little bit smaller and a little bit more personal. And you run into people all kinds of ways. They might be opposing counsel, they might end up being your clients, etc. So it never hurts to make connections and to make new friends. As far as bar prep goes, my biggest tip for everyone is to treat it like a job, take it seriously, and be disciplined. But also don't forget that you should take breaks because studying 100% of the time is not good for your mental health and it's just not that effective. So I found for myself when I was studying for the bar that I had set times that I was going to study, and then I also would take a break and go for a run or grab dinner or do something else to make sure I wasn't getting burnt out because it's a long road getting to the bar. But if you have any questions whatsoever about BWL, please don't hesitate to reach out. We do have a Young Lawyers event too that's coming up with our organizations in August. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up this summer, and I hope to see some of you at our future events.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Sade, do you have any links too that you can throw into the chat where they can get more
Sure.
information and sign up? Awesome. Awesome.
Definitely.
Yes. All right. And then next, we'll pass it over to Melvin.
Thank you very much, DeAndre. Good morning to everybody here. This is an incredibly important event, an incredibly important tool for each of you to use to take that road, take that next step to Esquire. My name is Melvin Felton. I'm the president of the John M. Langston Bar Association. We have been in existence since the 1920s as the largest bar association under the National Bar Association west of the Mississippi. I think only the Metropolitan Black Bar Association in New York City is larger. We're here for you. Your success, your becoming a lawyer is part of our mission, and an event like this is really sort of underscores who we are and what we do. In terms of events, in terms of tips, Sade, really kind of did it very dutifully. I will remind everybody, if you need one of those breaks, next Saturday, we're having our annual barbecue picnic in Kenneth Hahn Park. It was, I think, the very first Langston event I attended when I was a summer associate, my first, the summer between my 1L and 2L years. And I met friends there who continue to provide me a community even up until today. So that was, I don't know, maybe 17 years ago or something. So I encourage you to take this seriously. I encourage you to take the lessons that DeAndre and others will teach you, take the discipline, but also take the community, which we plan to provide both BWL and Langston. So DeAndre, thank you very much for the platform. And everybody, have a wonderful time. All the best to you. And I'm going to put some information in the chat for you as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, Sade. And yes, I can personally tell you that both of these orgs are honestly amazing, right? And, for all those looking for that sense of community and connection to other lawyers, really great ones to sign up for and get involved with. Yeah, really awesome. So quick background and backdrop on me. My name is DeAndre Aubrey. I'm the founder of Legally Fit. We are a law school and bar prep resource for students to achieve academic success. Again, as I mentioned a second ago briefly, I was in your shoes what feels like not too long ago, but at this point, unfortunately, it is. Okay, I want to age myself too much, but it's been about going on 11 years now since I've been out of law school. And I went to Howard University for undergrad, went to Southwestern Law School, and graduated top of my class. And upon graduation, instead of going into practice, I created a resource to help others. I was really tired of seeing, while I was going through law school, people putting in a lot of work for their academic success, but not getting the results, and realizing a lot about the process and the system and the hiding the ball, right? Traditions of law school is what made it more difficult. So I created materials and things to decode law school and really show students and give them a path to success. And so that's what I'm here to help with today, specifically with the MBE. But yeah, just to give you a little bit more of an idea of Legally Fit, outside of our partnerships with BWL and Langston and orgs like this, we also have our own bar prep company, right, where we have a 10-week program that we offer ourselves that's an alternative to a Barbary or Themis, where you get something that's a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more crafted, and I'm a little bit more modern. Okay. And then we also have law school resources, as Dr. Tana Sessions was just letting us know she got an A, her first A, just recently. So again, everybody show her some love in the chat. That's awesome. And yeah, that's what we do. So I'm super excited. I love these sessions. I love helping students. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. So let me first start off with a raise of digital hands. I just want to see who's currently studying for the bar right now. Again, I appreciate everybody in here who's coming to learn, but I want to see who's in it right now. Okay, so we got Safwan, Tracy, Kayla, Sandeep, okay, Carla, Enrique. Awesome. All right, so let me start off calling on a few people, and then feel free to raise your hand again if you want to volunteer. And by the way, when we in the session, to keep a little bit of order, if you want to speak, go ahead and just raise your digital hand and I'll call on you. All right, so let's start off with Delilah. Delilah, today's about MBE. Talk to me. How is the MBE portion specifically going so far in bar prep? Are you crushing it? Are you struggling with it? Just overall, like, how are you labeling that aspect of the bar exam?
Overall, I feel okay about it. Hi everybody, first off. I feel okay about it overall. I will say my school provided an MBE course that I took my last semester, so I did just graduate. And that helped just kind of address like some of the things to look out for, kind of how to analyze the questions to help narrow down the choices.
Okay.
So now I feel like it's just really, as I'm going through the subjects, really trying to focus on, okay, what are those minute details that I'm missing if I'm still getting them wrong? But overall, I feel good about the approach. Now I just feel like it's repetition and practice mostly.
Okay. All right, good. So sounds like, all right, I'm in a good place and I'm just going through it. I've got some training, I've got some tools, and I'm essentially just adding to the arsenal, just doing more, getting more and more exposure. So that sounds pretty good. And I think from that perspective, what you'll get today is then some more tools to add to that arsenal, and then a perspective that you can have as you go into questions on how to get the most out of them. Right. So sounds like you're in an overall decent place. Okay. Let's go back to Carla. Carla, specifically with the MBE, how about you? How's MBE going? Is there any specific areas of MBE that are proving to be a struggle? Any difficulty with them?
I'm pretty much with Delilah. MBE tends to be my stronger suit, even throughout law school. And it's typically where I go to when I'm trying to reinforce my knowledge on a subject. Sometimes I'm just able to process it better while seeing like the questions, the answers, the explanations. And so I feel fairly comfortable with it. I think as I go along and I learn the subjects better, I'll be just stronger kind of throughout the process. But I'm not having any specific struggles with approaching MBEs. I will say the one thing I have to catch myself sometimes is reading the facts and like not just trying to like skim through it and be like, oh, I know where this is going, because I'm also trying to figure out kind of getting used to how the bar asks this question. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I know where they're going with this. And I'm like, no, you didn't know where you were going with that. You missed something that was important. So I'm kind of just highlighting more than I used to when I'm just kind of figuring out what they're asking for, what the part of the question is, what type of call to action, things like that. And just like being slow and methodical. Since it's already a strong suit, I'm just kind of like trying to strengthen my foundation.
Got it. So first off, let me say that if I could get something tattooed on my forehead for bar prep students to see every time they see me, it would be reading comprehension, right? When I tell you reading comprehension is like the silent killer of students in bar prep, in law school, because for so many reasons, we will make up facts. Like you're saying, like, oh, I know where this is going. So like, I'm just going to assume what's coming up next. We'll miss key facts, right? Like I overlooked certain words or sentences that were crucial to the outcome. Right. Or we'll just, like not read all the way through, miss the end of the question, maybe had limiting information. Right. And things like that. So, man, I'm so happy that you're aware of that. Again, like for those that weren't in the beginning, Carla mentioned how much, she's incorporating self-reflection into her bar prep setting, which I think is a very powerful thing. So just to hear that, that's really good. And so I'll give you some tools on how to help with that, right? Because what can happen even with that, right? When you get to the bar exam, you're doing 100 multiple choice questions at a time. So there's even the endurance that comes into play once you're in question 50, 60, 70 of how do you keep that reading comprehension going, right? When you have so many questions to do. So that sounds really good. So let me ask one more question then before we get started. And then I'll open it up again to if anybody wants to share in this portion. But Carla, can you walk me through typically your setup and what you have in front of you and how you go through multiple choice questions? Like, I'm assuming you're using one of the resources like Adaptive Bar, Themis, or UWorld. And do you do them timed? Do you do them untimed? Do you do them closed book, open book? Like, walk me through the typical ways that you do multiple choice.
So I'm using Themis and Adaptabar. I kind of balance myself between doing one subject at a time and then mixing in subjects. So throughout the week, I may do 3 days where it's one subject and then 2 days where I'm mixing in 2 or 3 subjects so I can get used to shifting my mindset. Most of it, I'm doing closed book, just purely closed book. If I get to a question where I just absolutely do not know what's going on, I might look at, the book, but at that point, I'm like, I don't know it. So let me just see what the explanation is.
Yes.
When I'm approaching the question itself, I go to the call of the question, highlight the most important thing there. And then I go to the top of the question, read the whole thing, read the call of the question again. And then I try to figure out what the answer is before I look at the actual answers. And then I go and try to find whatever the answer is that I think it is. And then when I get to a place where I'm like, okay, what you thought it was isn't here, but it looks like there's 2 that might be in the ballpark, I'll cross out the ones that I know for sure it's not. And then I'll go through whatever the rule is for what the call of the question is asking for, the elements to see which question is closer to what I thought it was.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to share my strategy today, and you're definitely pulling a lot from that. You're also incorporating a little bit of process of elimination, right? At the same time, at the end of like, okay, what are we getting down to? And that's something that we want to definitely use, but also be careful with too, to an extent, because that's oftentimes how we get to that situation with the bar exam where it's like, there's 2 great answers. I can't choose which one out of these 2. And, we cross our fingers at that point. So, all that sounds good. So one thing that I'll tell everybody based off of what you said that I want to suggest you all implement to some extent is open book practice with both essays and multiple choice. And I'll talk about how and why I want you to do that. So before we jump into now a quick presentation, before we go into practice questions, anybody else want to share anything about anything I can address related to MBE, anything that they're personally struggling with as far as their approach, their system, et cetera?
Yeah.
Wood. Oh, and we got a couple. Yeah, raise your digital hand and then I'll get to you. Wood.
So with doing the private coaching guys message. So with Matt, he basically introduced me to a way to approach the MBEs. So you're reading the call to question, but at the same time, and I'm sure everybody heard it before, you read the last sentence and you try to figure out what floor you're in. You already know what house, then to figure out what floor, what room. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you're trying to figure out, trying to see if you can get the answer in your head and then look at the answer,
Yeah.
So that in your approach, I've been struggling, but in a good way. And I say in a good way because it's kind of like removing the bad habits that I've been doing. So it forces me to really kind of pay attention. And like Carla said, the reading comprehension becomes my weakness because sometimes you're like, oh gosh, I gotta read this shit. And then it's like you miss certain little things. And it's like I find myself like, damn it, I knew the answer and I got this wrong. So it's understanding because the approach and becoming comfortable in that approach so that you can move swiftly.
So it sounds like,
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're in the struggle part of just like, all right, you've gotten the system, and now it's just a habit development, and that's where, just like any other thing in life, right? It's about the meticulous, disciplined approach of consistency to develop that. So, that sounds like really great. This today is going to be more reinforcement, and like you're saying, you got to just keep at it and staying disciplined with each question. So awesome. All right, so then let's go get one more. And Safwan, anything not mentioned that you're struggling with MBE?
This is less so a struggle. This is something I noticed, especially with property questions when they're really long. If they're like 3 paragraphs and each one represents a different generation in the chain of conveyance, like a grandfather who conveys a life estate to someone, then there's a remainder and so on. Those are a lot more manageable when they're not timed because you can spend as long as you want reading everything. When should you start timing yourself and seeing how that goes?
That's a really good question. And so, because I'm going to talk about how to go through questions timed, untimed, open book, closed book in this. So let's hold on that question, and I'm going to definitely address that when we get to it in the session. So let's do that. And then Tracy, let me do me a favor and hold your question as well. I want to go ahead and jump into it, write it down, and then we'll have another segment for questions. All right, so let me go ahead and get this screen share going. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is the components of MBE success, just to build our foundation and understanding of what it takes to be successful on the MBE. All right, so let's run through these. So you have your core MBE skills, your intangible skills, and then you also have your understanding of the law. Understand that for the essay and the MBE portion, at the end of the day, everybody, you have to make sure you're understanding the law. That's not our focus here today. So whatever program you're in, right, you have to make sure you are connecting with the law in a way that you can actually apply it via multiple choice in MBE. An essay. If you're not understanding the law, it's very difficult to employ any tools that's going to help you on the essay and the MBE. So start there, right? But then when we get into the MBE, let's look at these core skills. First core skill that we see, and we've already heard a couple of times, is reading comprehension. All right. After that, you have some of the basic skills that you're used to in law school. You have to be able to spot the issues, right? As Carla mentioned, I want to do the analysis before I go into the answer choices. Well, I have to spot what area of law, not just which subject, but what specific rule is being focused on here. Then I go into rule memorization that's necessary. Thorough analysis, not a partial analysis, not just the rule. I do the rule and the exception, right? The entire section. And then you also, of course, need correct conclusions. You got to pick the right answer. Let's talk about the intangible skills. All right. Time management. All right. So again, MBEs for the bar exam is unlike any other MBE experience, right? Compared to law school. Typically, professors may give you 20 to like 30 questions, right? Where you're going to have 100 questions at a time. And that was kind of to Safwan's question right now. How do I increase that? So a lot of it is, as you see on the top of my board here, trust the process. A lot of way that you increase your time with multiple choice is, one, by incorporating tools, but two, is by just doing a lot of practice, right? Like, how do you get faster at riding a bike? You keep riding a bike and you keep going through the training wheels and let go of the training wheels. And then now you're moving faster and faster. So know that the more you learn the law, the more that you get exposure to the patterns and things like that, the faster you should go through this. So the way you actually increase your time is actually by increasing your exposure and how much you are extracting from those practice questions. Next is critical thinking. Okay. So Safwan, we heard a little bit already. Carla's using, I believe she's at Adaptabar. Which multiple choice bank are you using?
UWorld.
UWorld, perfect. So we have representation from both. Let me give you a quick lesson, a history lesson in a sense, on MBEs, right? And how they work with what we get to practice. So if you're studying for the bar exam, right, you have the essay portion, you have the MBE and the PT. When it comes to the written portion, the essay and the PT, we get typically the most recent bar exams and sample answers that are provided by the state bar, right? That gives us a model of what should have been discussed, how it should have been organized, and things like that. So, right, for California, for example, you can go to the California Bar website right now and look at the February 2024 essay and look at actual answers. When it comes to the MBE, we do not get that. We don't get recent exams and get those questions to study. What has happened is that over the course of almost like 30 years, if not longer, the NCBE, which is the organization that makes the MBE questions, like periodically they release questions, right? They release questions, but these questions aren't made and released for the purpose solely of helping you prepare. Typically, these questions are released because they're being let go from the cycle of questions that they're using to actually test. So it's more so like they're just getting us the old questions, which is still good because it gives us representation of what was in there, but it also at the same time it's being phased out. So what you have is UWorld, Adaptibar, et cetera, that licensed out those questions. They get all of those old questions, and then those various companies will also make their own questions inspired by those. So you have about, I believe about 1,800 questions that are NCBE licensed that different companies can use. And so whenever you have a company that says they have 3,000, well, that means that they have supplemented that with an additional 1,200, right, with their own questions. Now, with all that said, Safwan, I don't know if you've heard this already, you've gotten some insider information from those that have taken the bar already, but what are your expectations as to how similar you think the questions on the exam are going to look compared to the questions you do in practice?
Somewhat similar, especially if a lot of them are written by the same people. They were NCBE questions before. They're written by the same kind of style and the same kind of trap answers. There are patterns that appear.
Yes.
Relatively similar.
So, and to that point, and I want to prepare you for, most people have an experience where they say, those questions did not look like anything I saw in practice. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that to an extent, of course, it's going to be similar. It's not going to be completely off the wall, right? You're still going to have some patterns, some similarities, absolutely. But do understand that they'll go into either different sentence structure, different little nuanced areas of the law that maybe you haven't seen in practice, and different things. So all of that buildup, everybody, was to say that when you're going through questions, right, there's two things on this intangible skills that you really need to do. Number one, it's recognizing patterns. And actually, we can also say recognizing traps, put those together. Patterns and traps. Patterns are, right, and we'll see this later today, certain factual scenarios and then what it equates to as far as the legal outcome, right? And you want to have those things generalized and stored for easy identification and analysis. And then recognizing certain traps, right? At this point in bar prep, a lot of us, or law school, have gone through subjects with areas of the law that we know are like common traps. Let me see if I can think of one really quickly, right? A common simple trap in contracts is if I say to Safwan, hey, I offer to sell you my water bottle here. And then he says, no, I don't want to buy it. Right. And then he turns around 2 seconds later and says, no, I changed my mind. I do want to buy it. Right. Offer accepted. Okay. Safwan, do we have a contract here?
No, because I already rejected your offer. It's too late.
Exactly. So that common trap there is giving the impression as though somebody is accepting, but if there's a termination already, now what you've done is created a new offer, which now I have to accept, et cetera. So that's an example of a very simple trap. They can get obviously more complex with different areas of law. So you want to recognize patterns and traps. And everybody, the other thing that you have to prepare yourself for is critical thinking. All right. Let me call on somebody else. Let me go back to my list and see. And then please too, guys, if you're available for talking, put on your camera just so I can remember who was taking the bar and who was able to participate. But Delilah, I remember you were speaking. So Delilah, have you come across a question in practice yet where you haven't seen that area of law just yet and you're kind of having to work your way through it for the first time?
Yeah, I feel like I remember just the other day I was going over real property questions. And I don't recall us talking that much about title theory versus lien theory. And so as I was going through those, I was like, okay, wait, we're talking about foreclosures, but I hadn't really understood the difference yet. And so some of those I remember I was like, okay, I didn't really cover these too much.
Good. Okay. So what I want you to realize, and everybody, when you come across those scenarios, I want you to look at those as opportunities to work on your critical thinking, right? Because when you're in that position, Delilah, you are now forced to use logic to make your way through. And typically what you do is you try to associate or cling on to something that you know within that subject, some type of policy, some other similar rule, but you have to use something that to get you through that question using logical reasoning. So that's what the critical thinking that I'm telling you about. And because when you get to the bar exam, you're going to get questions that you've never seen before. So you're going to have to exercise that muscle. And we don't want to panic in those situations. We want to use critical thinking. I'll quickly share with you all, and some of you guys may have heard this story, but on my bar exam, on the Crim Pro essay question, the last call of the question said, can the defendant represent himself pro se? Never in my history of law school, studying for the bar, had I ever learned rules on whether somebody can represent themselves pro se. And that is not something that is commonly taught. So that was a curveball that, again, you had to use critical logical thinking to make your way through. All right. So that pretty much touches all the intangible skills. The last one there is process of elimination. That's pretty much a last resort for me, but it is still something that you want to utilize when you're in a pickle. But we'll talk about what my primary strategy here is in a second. So let's talk about the most common issues with multiple choice questions. I want you guys to all look at these for a second, self-identify if you can, and realize that there is a solution for these common problems. So the first one is reading comprehension, which even if it's not a problem, for most of us, there's still maybe room for improvement, right? We want to get really good with reading comprehension. Solutions, slow down. Right? Stop trying to make it through and actually enjoy each question and appreciate it and really go through the process in the correct way. Prioritize this over issue spotting. So often you have law students, right, who are obsessive over finding the right answer, the outcome, that you're not actually appreciating the facts for what they are. So I try to tell students that reading comprehension and reading the question is a lot like prepping a meal. Right? If I have a complicated dish, before I make it, I'm going to chop my onions. I'm going to prepare all the little components, right? So then that way, when it's time to cook, I have everything and it's ready to go. You want to think of reading comprehension in that way. Your first read of an essay or multiple choice should not be with the primary purpose of trying to figure out what issue is being tested. It should just be digesting the story and really understanding what's going on, why the parties are upset, what do they want, things like that. Clarify and summarize as you go, right? So part of reading comprehension too is to take those facts, comprehend them to get the story, right? And then be hands-on. What I mean be hands-on is diagram. I diagram for almost every multiple choice question I do, even if it's just like jotting down the initials of the parties, right? Sometimes I'll draw, if it's a property question, I'll draw a house or a box to represent the land, just different things to put pen to paper. It really helps you stay locked into the questions. Second guessing. All right. A lot of us can struggle with second guessing ourselves. And so here's what you want to do to improve that. You must take a stand, right? When you do multiple choice questions, you have to, or essays even for that matter, when you come to an analysis of a rule, make sure you're picking a side. If you in practice are avoiding picking a side, you're not giving yourself the ability to see what is my gut telling me, so that way you can either validate it or invalidate it. So I don't really care when I have students in my program, when I ask them a question about applying the law, if they get it right or wrong, if it's the first time that they're seeing this, right? Because the whole idea is that whether you get it right or wrong, you're going to learn from this. So when you see it the next time, you are prepared. So try to take that pressure off of yourselves when you're studying to get everything right the initial time. I want you to focus on really kind of seeing what is my gut telling me and go with it. And either your gut is right and keep proceeding as such, or adjust your gut. But that's also how you then end up increasing your time. Because you can imagine if you're in the bar exam and you don't have a strong gut and you're second guessing almost every question you're doing, that is slowing you down. So you want to get into that rhythm of, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And then, of course, over time of practicing, your feeling is supported by actual practice. Okay. And then lastly is no strategy. For anybody in here that is just letting the right answer choice speak to them, right? You're just reading through the question and seeing which one's the best answer and going in it in a way like that. We don't want to do that. We need a much more disciplined strategy and structure for going through these questions. And then that's what we're going to go through today. Let me see if I have some more common issues. Nope. Time to get into the strategy. All right. Any quick questions before we go further? Okay, cool. All right. First off, before we get into this, practice is key. All right, Carla, how many multiple choice questions is your goal to do during bar prep?
Oh, total? Oh, I have no idea. I have it written down somewhere, but weekly, I'm doing about 200 a week.
Okay, good. 200 a week for 10 weeks puts you
Mhm.
at about 2,000, which is a good baseline for how many questions you should do. Quantity, at least 2,000 MBE questions before the exam, because you must expose yourself to the patterns, right? And so many times when I hear a student who has not passed the bar exam, right, some of the first questions I ask is, how much practice did you do? And so when I hear I only did 900 questions, I only did 1,000 questions, 1,500, well, you just did not get enough exposure, right? And so that is a key element to success here. So make sure you are hitting those quantity marks. But just like most things in life, it's not just about quantity, but also about quality. I've had students who have gone through 3,000 questions, right? But if I give them one of those 3,000 questions that they've already done, there's a chance they're going to still get that wrong because of the way that they practice. So there's no point to go through all of those if you're not learning from them, okay? And so the key perspective and mindset that I want you to all have in this is you want to use all your essay and multiple choice, or at least a majority of them, to not focus on testing yourself, but rather your knowledge, right? Or excuse me, rather to learn and to improve from that experience. But we're so conditioned to use multiple choice and essays as a test to see if we're ready, right? And so, yeah, Carla, between now and the end of July, how many times will you be taking the bar exam?
This is a trick question.
It sounds like
Once.
it, but at the same time, it's exactly one time. That's it, right? So everybody, whenever your upcoming exam is, that's the one time you're taking it between now and then. So I think a lot of times, right, we put this pressure on ourselves while we're studying as if we're taking it today, as if we're taking it tomorrow, when that's not the case. And your mindset should be, I'm taking the steps to prepare for that day that's coming up, right? And bar prep, everybody, is truly a culmination process. That this is a 10-week intensive program where the goal is for you to be ready and complete at the end of your studying, right? But when you put that pressure to just like test yourself too early, you're actually working in a counterproductive way. All right, so here is the strategy. Feel free to write these down, all right? Or take a screenshot if that's quicker. So here we go. First thing you want to do is to skim the answer choices for soft triggers, right? Soft triggers because, right, you never know if this is for sure going to be the area of law going on, but you might get a hint. Next, you want to read the question gingerly and attentively. Pinpoint the subject and specific topic being tested. Look up your rule, come up with an answer, select the matching answer, and then reflect and take notes, okay? We're going to go ahead and break each one down. So if you're writing this down, feel free to just continue to add to that list as we walk through each one. So the first one is skim the answer choices. Narrow down the subject and topic. Spend 5 to 10 seconds skimming the answer choices solely to identify the subject being tested and, if possible, the specific topic or area of law within that subject. So if you're doing a mixed set of questions, right, skimming the answer choices is going to let you know this is contracts, this is evidence, this is property, etc. But you're looking to see if you can go a step further. Are you seeing any words associated with a specific topic within that area of law? Oh, these are modification questions. Oh, this is a mortgage issue, right? So you're looking to see if you could see any type of way to ground yourself in a specific rule. All right, so that's skim the answer choices. Again, 5 seconds, right? You really don't want to spend too long. Sometimes I can't tell what the specific topic is, and that's okay, right? But you're just giving it 5 seconds to see if you can. Now, this next one is very important. Read the question with intention, and otherwise gingerly and attentively, All right, so multiple choice questions are many fact patterns, and therefore most of the facts are important. When practicing, take breaks as needed. You want to avoid losing focus and gazing over questions. Be hands-on. So Carla, are you doing your questions on the computer, or you have a physical copy? I'm guessing on the computer.
Computer.
Do you have any scratch paper on your side while you're going through those questions?
You know, I'm just starting to use scratch paper because I think it's helping me when I'm getting like 50 questions in, but staying focused.
Exactly. So here's what I recommend for everybody is that, right? Like for now, we still have to take the multiple choice portion in person for most of us. So I would actually get just some bank of questions. Go on Amazon, find a book, right, of just practice questions, just solely for the purpose of getting familiar with what that's going to feel like on game day. But I do like Adaptable and UWorld for the tech that it has, the algorithms of giving you questions that you've gotten wrong, all of those things. But what I want you to do, Carla, and everybody that's using a web-based resource, I want you to always have a piece of paper by your side. And I want you to treat that as if the question was on that paper. So you could just take notes. And again, it's not going to make sense to anybody else. Probably won't make sense to you later on, right? The next day when you come back to that. But it's just in that moment, you are diagramming and just like writing certain things. Right. The one thing that you can't do that I also want you to do on the day of the exam is just circle words, underline words. Right. And again, this is just you putting pen to paper, and it's crazy how much that actually helps you stay locked in. All right. And then lastly, read the entire question. Right. Can't speak to the importance of that enough, of like you're putting yourself at a disservice if you are missing key facts in the fact pattern. OK. All right. So after, give me a second. I don't know why that happened. That was weird. Okay. Cool. Now we have step number 3. Carla, can you give me a thumbs up? Are you seeing the presentation again? Perfect. All right. So next we pinpoint the specific subject and topic. All right. So let me go to Dr. Tana on this one. So Dr. Tana, let's think through this really quickly, logically, right? If you are a professor, right, of law, and you have your property outline, you're a property professor, and you wanted to create questions, just think through what would the steps be in making a set of multiple choice questions, or just think about one, like what would you actually do to make a multiple choice question?
Well, I think you definitely start with the topic of the syllabus, and then looking at what the rules are and the elements from there, and then trying to come up with a question that would touch on practicing whether or not you understand the rules and the elements.
Perfect. And look, and chances are most also try to throw in then some traps in there, some tricks, because they like to get us. But that's exactly it. Think about how simple that is. You have a outline, you pick a topic, right? Otherwise, you pick a rule. Then you think of a scenario, a fact pattern to see it in application, to trigger it, right? And then that's it. You present it to the student. So it goes from rule to fact pattern to presentation. So our job, everybody, is to reverse engineer that, knowing that's what it is, right? So I don't know if all of us necessarily comprehend or realize the fact that every multiple choice question has a particular rule or set of rules that it's testing. And so your job is to try to specifically identify what is the not only subject, but topic being tested. So you want to think of your reverse engineering the question. Okay, so let's talk about this process while you're going through practice. And I think Carla kind of hit on this a little bit when she was saying sometimes I'm just completely stumped by what's going on. And I'm going to give you some tools on what you do here. So it says in practice, if you cannot figure out what subject you're in at all, or what specific topic is being tested at all, at that point, you just need to go straight to the explanation, the rule, and then maybe even straight to your outline after that, because clearly your understanding of the law is not even, it's not at that 50%. It's not strong enough to go through this multiple choice question. So now this is an opportunity to pause and learn. Okay. And realize like that's okay. That's going to happen. So that's if you're, again, just completely lost. There's no point in just like picking an answer choice and going through it. Like, nope, time to learn. All right. And so during the exam and simulations, though, that is then where you're going to have to do a little bit more of the critical thinking. You have to use logic, common sense, your gut feeling, process elimination, etc. But I don't want you to do that in practice, because you might miss out again of the learning opportunity to realize, all right, I need to pause this and figure out, why am I missing this trigger? Okay. So reverse engineer the question. That's what we want to do here. Let's now go to the next step. Look up your rule. Okay, so I want to go back to Carla on this one, right? Because Carla mentioned that, hey, I'm doing all of these closed book. So first, I just want to ask you, Carla, what is your initial impression or thought when I'm telling you to look up your rule while you're going through these multiple choice questions?
No, it completely makes sense. I think I get nervous about going back and looking at the rules, especially at this point, because I'm like, you should know this, like you should know better, just figure it out. When I have to kind of be comfortable with, it's okay that you don't know it yet, and you're not going to know it if you don't go look at the rules. So hearing you talk about it, I'm seeing the method and why I should be more comfortable with not knowing.
I'm happy to hear that I don't have to pull you all the way from the other side of like, no, I can't. It's wrong to look up the rule. You've already been kind of feeling it. And now I'm kind of giving you that confirmation that, hey, it's okay. So I'm glad to hear. So let's talk about this for a second, everybody. And what Carla said was just what I was mentioning earlier. There's all this pressure that we're putting on ourselves, right? I should know this already, right? I just reviewed this subject that took 4 months to learn in law school. I just reviewed it for 2 or 3 days, but like I should know it right now, like the back of my hand, right? It's not realistic to do that, but yet we put that pressure on ourselves. So what I want you to do is realize that when we try to memorize a rule or recall a rule before it's fully memorized, most times what we're doing is recalling either an incomplete rule or an inaccurate rule. And so now we're doing an analysis with an inaccurate or incomplete rule that's setting us up for failure, right? And so my whole strategy and theory on best practice here is that look up your rule, because most times we are actually struggling, even if we have the rule in front of us and the fact pattern, we still struggle with doing the analysis to get the right answer. And that's the part that we all need to improve first, because guess what? Albeit it's going to be a challenge, the easiest part of the bar exam is the memorization, right? Like that's something that we've done our entire lives. Like that is something, again, that's a challenge, but it's not unique and novel. Applying the law to facts is. So let's just read through this, make sure I didn't miss anything. First is, this is training, not cheating. Have your blueprint readily accessible while you're doing practice or MBE. When I mentioned blueprint, that's what in Legally Fit we call our outlines. So yes, have your outline readily accessible. Once you identify what specific topic you are being tested on, go to the rule in your outline and simply refresh yourself on the rule, and then now apply it in your fact pattern. So the funny thing is, Carla, is that you see here at the bottom, this actually promotes you memorizing. So instead of actually testing your recall, you're improving your chances for accurate recall at a later time, because you're going to your rule, you're seeing it complete, right? And then you're actually right, touching it, you're making it tangible by taking that rule and walking through it and applying it. So this actually helps the thing that you're trying to test. I'll just give you all just a quick backstory on how I came up with this strategy. It was being in your shoe, feeling the exact same way Carla was feeling, where it's like, I don't know, like I'm doing it this way, but I'm kind of feeling a different way about it. I was taking Barbary back in 2014, and yeah, I was going through it. And it was the midway point, and it's just like, I'm not learning enough from these multiple choice questions. So me and a friend of mine, a study buddy, we decided, like, you know what, we're going to switch this up, and I'm going to start using my outline. And it felt so, dangerous and risky, like, oh, I'm going against the grain here. But we quickly realized how much more we were learning by doing that. So not only are you doing something that I implemented myself, I've had my students do for over 10 years, and it's with great success. So highly recommend that you implement this if you haven't already. After you look up your rule, again, it's pretty now straightforward. What you do next, right? You apply the law and you come up with the answer. So Carla mentioned this, but we all don't do this. Sometimes, what do? We beeline it to the answer choices and look for the best answer choice to reveal itself. But the reason why that's not a good idea is because the bar is notorious for putting multiple good-looking answers in there. So now it's hard to choose, right? So you want to know what the answer is beforehand and then go into the answer choices and select the right one. Let's take a look at a few of the notes here. Eyes off the answer choices. Be disciplined, right? Stop at the call of the question and analyze yourself. Analyze the law, not your emotions. This is just like another big message, a big lesson that is tucked away in this section. But overall, with the bar and as a lawyer, you have to practice the skill of staying connected to your rule. But so many times we're analyzing our idea of the rule, or we're letting our emotions get into play. So for example, with that example I just did with Safwan a second ago of I offer to sell him my water bottle. He says no, and then he simply says, I changed my mind. I want to accept. Well, if you're analyzing your idea of the rule or your emotions, you might think like, well, yeah, why not? Safwan really quickly changed his mind and said, yeah, like that should be a contract. That's you analyzing your emotions, not the actual rule. Okay. Make sure you go through the entire analysis. Sometimes we get questions wrong just because we didn't apply the exception at the end. So you have to do a thorough analysis. All right, so after you come up with your answer, then you select the matching answer, right? And it says right here, if you do steps 1 through 4 correctly, about 9 out of 10 times, you will find an answer choice that either perfectly matches or is consistent with the right answer choice. Carla, 9 out of 10, it's not 10 out of 10. Are we happy with 9 out of 10?
Yeah.
Yes. I think if any of us walked out of the bar exam scoring 90% on the multiple choice, we would be happy. So you're playing a statistics game here. Nobody gets 100% on the MBE, right? Not that I've ever heard of. So we were playing a stats game here of, hey, this is my system and the system yields a particular result. Is it going to be that 1 out of 10 times where something about the way it was presented was a curveball, something threw it off? It can happen. It will happen. But 9 out of 10 is what we're going for, that if you're doing a thorough and accurate analysis of your rule and applying it, right, we love that. Okay, so that's selecting the right, the matching answer. And then now when you're in practice, again, kudos, I've heard the word reflection today. You have to be a reflective student. That's the only way we improve in life and anything, right? You have to try things, implement things, and then reflect on what worked and what didn't and make adjustments. So let's look at all the things you can do here. If you got a question wrong, study the explanation and figure out where you went wrong, and then extract the pattern from the question that you just did. If you got a question right, skim the explanation, still go into it, because sometimes we get questions right for the wrong reasons. Okay, so you still need to go through that explanation to make sure you got it right for the right reasons. And if not, now you treat this as a wrong answer, right? Because you just got lucky at this point. So follow the steps from above. And then again, extract the pattern from the question that you just did. And then what about when you come across a question testing that niched or nuanced area of law that you've never seen before? Again, take in that experience so you can be ready for it for the next time you see it. And if you see it multiple times, that means it's not nuanced or niched, and you actually need to add some coverage for that into your outline and take notes as necessary. But I'm referring to those truly one-off questions that you get. Don't obsess over those. I see students go down the rabbit hole and now they're on Reddit and now they're Googling and they're going down, right, all this discovery, where it's like, no, just keep doing more questions. And if it's important, it'll come up again. So avoid the rabbit holes, just take in those experiences. But that's why you need to study in distraction-free environments and be extremely present. All right, so something that we saw here a lot in this reflect and take notes is extracting patterns. All right, so now we're going to get an opportunity to practice these patterns that are so powerful and important in your studying. All right, so Dr. Tana, can you please walk us through this first example, and can you start off by reading this fact pattern for us, please?
Sure. Michelle walks out of her home to take the garbage can to the curb. Her neighbor Fred is having a bad day. He notices that Michelle places her garbage can slightly in front of his driveway. Fred then orders his pit bull, Rocky, to bite Michelle. Rocky bites Michelle and causes a laceration on her leg. What is the basis of Michelle's lawsuit, and will she be successful?
Perfect. All right. And then I don't know about you, sometimes I can read out loud in front of a group and still comprehend the facts. And other times I need to do a second read because I was, making sure I didn't misspell or, mispronounce anything. Do you need another second, or did you comprehend all those facts?
Yeah, I want to read it again for myself.
Yeah, everybody take 1 minute and just read it to yourself. And then let me know when you got it. Okay. You got it down?
I think so. Wait, what's the question again?
You said, what's the what?
What's your question again? What do you want me to do here?
Okay, yeah. So we haven't got to that part yet. So first question for you is just like, and I want everybody to do, it's like, we have multiple choice, right? Shoulders are tense. That's what a lot of us do. First, just have a little fun with it. Can you just like summarize in a very light way what took place here in this fact pattern?
Yeah, so Michelle has a neighbor. Evidently, he's having a bad day. She's taking out the garbage, probably inadvertently placed it in his driveway or near his driveway. He gets upset and tells his dog to attack her, and the dog bites her.
There we go. And then the bite did what?
Caused a laceration on her leg.
There we go. There we go. Okay. You can envision this. This is a real life, possible scenario. So good. That's reading comprehension. Very good. Got it. Now you have something to see, right? And hopefully see again when you have something similar. So now my next question is, what is the basis of Michelle's lawsuit, and will they be successful? So I know you're in law school. I know you're not doing what our bar prep students are doing right now, which is a survey of every class. So I'll happily pass it along to a volunteer. But first, can you spot what is the basis of lawsuit? What is the area of law that's going to be triggered here?
Yeah, see it as tort.
Yep.
And going into negligence.
Okay. So we're thinking negligence. And then Tracy, I saw you had your hand up. Did you have an idea of what you thought this might be?
Intentional torts.
Okay. And then anyone in specific?
Battery.
Okay. So this is going to be answer intentional torts, and it's going to be battery. And yes, Michelle is going to be successful. So first off, right, Dr. Tain, I want to give you kudos for that. Again, that confidence, that gut feeling that you went with, right? Even though, as we learned, it's incorrect. I like that it's like, hey, I think this is torts. That was accurate. I think this is negligence. Okay, so that was off. So now how do we adjust that so that way that our gut is now correct? And so,
no, I was going to say, I think, you pick up the key words in a fact pattern. What it says is, I don't know, I guess in a bar prep, some of these facts, it doesn't matter what she was doing and why he did it. It's just the fact that he did it. And so I don't care about the garbage can. I don't care about any of that. It's that he ordered his pit bull, as opposed to his pit bull was off the leash and got out of the house and blah, 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 blah. Like that
exactly.
To me was like intentional negligence. I think it's torts. Is it intentional or is it negligence? Okay, he ordered a pit bull, intentional torts. Like, so if I see a question and he negligently let his dog, and I don't want to hear that. He ordered, like that's the word that you look for.
Exactly. So
thank you.
In this fact pattern, what we have here is that right there. You have to draw that line between negligent and intentional torts. And so here, Dr. Tana, that is what you're now going to attach to for future scenarios, is the fact that he ordered the dog. So that now this is outside the act of carelessness, right? Which we typically associate with negligence. Now, cool. Dr. Tana, does that make sense? We're good. We've now learned this.
Yeah, it was perfect. And thanks, Tracy. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So now we're not done. Sometimes what happens is we just move on from the question. Cool, got it, move on. But what I need you to do is extract the pattern, right? And go ahead and give us our first attempt at how you would make a pattern out of this question that you just did. The factual sequence, right? And then what the legal outcome was. Go ahead and give it a shot.
Is it still on me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm still not. Okay.
Got you in the hot seat still, because I know you can handle it. Go ahead.
Okay. Run the question one more time. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So my question to you is, right, like I want you to do what I'm telling you, which I haven't given you an example of yet. So you're shooting in the dark, but I want you to extract a pattern. I want you to generalize what just took place as far as the factual sequence and the legal outcome that we had. And the goal here is to take away this pattern and store it. So when you see something similar, you're ready to analyze it quickly again. So yeah, with all that said, just give it your best shot. And then I'm going to guide you into a good pattern, but I want to see your first attempt at it.
Okay. I think it's similar to what Tracy, the way she broke it down. It was looking at the fact that, like she said, not really worried about the garbage can. She was outside.
And let me just start you off with this. I want you to start off by phrasing it like when blank, then blank, something along those lines. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm stuck.
Like I know I can't even get out the gates. No, it happens. Okay.
I'll help
Christine,
you out. Oh, sorry.
Let's go. Yeah, and then go ahead and raise your hand, Tracy, when you're ready to participate. And then let me go ahead and call on Christine.
Yeah, I think based on the framework that you just provided, when person has control over dangerous animal, and animal hurts other person, then battery.
Okay. I love the attempt there. And I'm just going to show you, I'm going to give you one critique on yours to see how you can like slim it down. And then I'm going to show you my version that I think is a slight improvement. Is the fact that we're dealing with a dangerous animal, do you think that is critical or relevant to the outcome?
No.
Exactly. So when it's not critical or relevant, we don't want to include it, because that way, what happens when I say I order my butterfly, to bite you? A butterfly is not a dangerous animal. Is that still a battery? In theory, it would be. So yeah, we want to take out the unnecessary aspects. So here, let's take a look, everybody, at my pattern. Defendant ordered an animal to cause harm to the plaintiff, and that was a battery. Christine, what do you think of that one?
I was close. Just the dangerous part was too much, but
exactly. Good. Right. And then, the other part that you did leave out, I believe, you said when they're in control. And I'm not sure if you used the word ordered. So maybe you did, but yeah, you want defendant here ordered an animal to cause harm to the plaintiff, and that was a battery. Okay. Really quick, going back to Dr. Tana. Do you see now what I mean by patterns?
Yep.
And you see how easy it is in theory?
Yeah.
It's one of those things too that, and don't get me wrong, it is difficult. And then you're like, okay, hold on. It's pretty straightforward, but you have to develop this skill, because all I'm doing, as Tracy mentioned, as you mentioned, like you're getting rid of all the fluff facts. You're getting rid of all the garbage and Fred and this. And it's just like, no, like somebody ordered an animal to cause harm, and that was a battery. All right. So let's go ahead and do this next one. All right. So I'm going to read it, Dr. Tana, and then I want you to give me a quick answer here. Jody is at the zoo with his family. Jody starts teasing the monkeys. Upset, the zookeeper says, I don't like you messing with my monkeys. He commands the monkey to jump the fence and slap the man in the face as a joke, and to send a message to the other guests of the zoo. What is the basis of Jody's lawsuit, and will he be successful?
I mean, this feels similar to the one we just went through. So I still feel like it's a tort, and now it's battery, because he ordered the money.
Exactly. So again, I'm simplifying again the experience for you all, right? These are actual types of questions you'll see, right? But they're not in multiple choice format. And you might get this question, and then you might see the Jody example 50 questions later. right? But your expectation and goal is to be able to remember that pattern to quickly and confidently say, oh, I simply have another scenario where the defendant is ordering an animal to cause harm to another person. So we switched out the dog for a monkey. We switched out Fred for the zookeeper. We switched out the harm. There was no longer a bite. Now it was a slap in the face. All those things don't really change the outcome here, right? And so, yes, that is the power of a pattern where you confidently say, oh, this fits within that pattern. I know the outcome. So this now, and Saffron, we're going to talk about this again a little bit more towards the end. This is also how you create more time for longer fact patterns. When you get to these types of questions, these are the ones you want to get in less time. You want to get in 30 seconds, 45 seconds. So now you can have a little extra time for those longer fact patterns. All right. So there we go. And then now we're going to do this last one, Dr. Tana, on this practice for extracting a pattern. It says Edwin owns a nightclub. Okay, it's time to party. One night, Michael enters Edwin's nightclub. Michael comes in extremely drunk. Michael begins to harass the other guests. All right, we know this type of guy. Edwin orders his club bouncer, Dwayne Johnson, to punch Michael and knock him out. Edwin says, hey, The Rock, get him out of here. Punch him, get him out of here. Dwayne does so. Michael brings a lawsuit against Edwin. Reading comprehension. You might be inclined in your brain, Dr. Tana, to think Michael is going to bring a lawsuit against who?
Dwayne.
Exactly.
Nelson.
Right. And so, look, that was Christine. Michael is going to bring a lawsuit against Dwayne. However, this is against Edwin. So that can change completely the focus of the analysis. And that's, again, is reading comprehension. What is the basis of the lawsuit and will they be successful? So Dr. Tana, have we seen a scenario in today's exercises where a person is ordering another human to harm another human? Have we seen that?
No.
No. So this is, again, where it's just like, I don't know, but I'm going to use now logic, right? Well, I've seen when somebody orders another animal to hurt somebody, that's a battery. So this seemingly is close enough. So that's the direction that I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with that this is similar to that scenario. And so therefore, I'm going to go with battery, right, in this scenario. So this is how your patterns also prepare you for similar scenarios, right? Not always the exact same, right? Everybody, I hope you're really, really capturing, and again, please raise your hand, anybody that was about to speak, and I'll call on you. I hope you're really capturing the power of extracting patterns, because once you incorporate that into your daily practice with MBEs, you'll start to see how similar these questions are. There's only so many ways for there to be a battery. There's only so many ways to test all these different topics. So once you stop getting so consumed and lost in the story and you can simplify it, you'll start to see the thread and the commonality. Okay. Do I have any questions on this?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering, could he sue? This has nothing to do with this exact one. But couldn't Edwin sue Dwayne Johnson for assault, or could it be considered assault at any point of the case?
Yeah, and so assault is always then something to consider associated with battery whenever the person sees it coming and is apprehensive of the harm. So if this was an essay, you could talk about it, but these fact patterns don't really speak to the assault aspect. But yeah, there's definitely room to consider and think about assault as well. Awesome. Tracy?
This one for me was not, I mean, I guess it was testing battery, and I get the point that you're saying about the pattern. But for me, this one, I immediately thought about vicarious liability as opposed to battery. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, but vicarious liability, Tracy, right, is a theory to impart what onto the employer?
Liability onto the employer, and because
what type of liability? Negligence. So we use vicarious liability to impart negligence from the employee to the employer. But again, this is intentional. Edwin ordered his club bouncer. So you don't need to rely on vicarious liability because it was actually his command to do so.
Right, because I said, oh, well, this is his command, but I immediately thought about vicarious liability with the negligence. So
exactly. And that's kind of where you have things like soft triggers, and that's why you have to really know patterns very deeply, because there is some similarity here to vicarious liability, that you have employer, employee, right? But it's not the traditional scenario in the sense that typically, right, like a traditional situation there would be Edwin is in the office doing some paperwork. Dwayne decides to voluntarily use excessive force, against this patron to get him out of there, or negligently uses excessive force, whatever it may be. So now that's more of a vicarious liability where Edwin was completely unaware of this. And now you're trying to impart Dwayne Johnson's negligence to Edwin. See the difference? I'm going to take that silence as a yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can see me,
good.
but I did a thumbs up. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. I can't see everybody. Okay, good.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Real quick though, I just want to get a little bit of feedback. Dr. Tana, patterns. Was that something that you were doing before? What's your impression? As we've just kind of broke down what extracting patterns looks like.
Yeah, I hadn't. So it's helpful to use that approach when I think about going into next semester and preparing for finals, to use that as an approach, and also in the practice MBEs that I do.
Yes. And guess what, everybody? How about this is going to be what being a lawyer is in whatever way, right? Like, what do you think happens when, X person off of the street comes into the personal injury, person's office with, I just got into a car accident. He's taking in them, giving them this whole story of like, I was on my way to work and I was driving fast. And then this, and all they're doing is extracting like, okay, what is this like that I've done before, right? Like, okay, were you on your phone? They're looking for certain things and getting rid of much of the fluff. So this is something that's going to carry you through law school, the bar, and practice. So let's do one more, and let's go to Carla. And actually, let's go to Kayla. I see we got some more cameras on. Thank you. So Kayla, have you been using patterns? You're in bar prep. Have you been using patterns? And if so, what's your impression of now incorporating this into your studying?
So actually, I'm a repeat taker, and the first time around mentioning, like, I did so many questions, DeAndre, like I did like 2,000 questions. And I guess now thinking back over it, I think I was doing quantity versus quality. And so I wasn't like extracting patterns. So I'm happy to be on here and learning different tools from you. But I was just so like, I was hearing people, I got 140 on the MBE and I only did 900 questions versus me, I did over 2,000 and I got 117.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, you can't always compare that, because that's just look, that's like, I've been going to the gym for just, 2 months and I lost 20 pounds. I've been going to the gym, like that stuff just comes down to some people are more prone to multiple choice. They just kind of have a knack for it. There's so many different variables, but at the very least, I'm happy to hear that that you want to get exposure. And I say you do want to get exposure to 2,000 questions, but like you said, it's not just about the quantity. You're learning that it's about the quality. So now you're learning what it means to do quality practice. So awesome. I'm positive. I know that that's going to make a difference in your score. Okay, so we have finished the first portion more or less of kind of going through the formula. Now what we want to do is let's go through some actual practice questions. I have some contract questions that we could do. I have 3 of them. And if we have time, I do also have some evidence questions that I want to get to as well. So let me go back to the screen share. Quick note on the reflection here. Reflecting and taking notes is a step that few take. Most do a question and simply look at the right answer choice and move on. Let me move this over. This is the step that makes the biggest difference between a passer and a non-passer. It's this reflection, pattern extracting, taking notes portion of doing a question. All right, here are a few quick pro tips before we go into those contract questions. Become familiar with common patterns. This translates to quick and accurate analysis. Become familiar with common traps and tricks. develop your critical thinking and logical reasoning skills. And then remember, every question has a source rule that it is testing. Reverse engineer the question. So really all that's a summary of all the things we've talked about, some of the things we've talked about already. Carl, I want to come back to you, right? We talked about looking up your rule and how, oh, we're going to make that transition. And it may initially feel like maybe it's cheating. This slide is to show everybody, right? What you're doing is creating a new habit, right? That gives you actually a structure that you could use on the day of the exam, which is ideal because you want to perform the way you're going to practice. You want to practice the way you're going to perform. So we see here, the only difference then with this strategy that we're going to then do on the day of the exam is one, we're going to remove taking notes, right? At the bottom, there is no number 7. You're not taking notes on the day of the exam. You're going through each question one at a time. The only thing that's then different is that instead of looking up your rule, by that time, we should now have memorized the rule. So now you're just going to your rule in your head as opposed to physically in your outline. But imagine that, right? That you have a system that you have habitually practiced and developed that is now a confident system for you. And you're implementing that exact system on the day of the exam as opposed to, you know, freestyling it or winging it under the pressure. So big reason why you want a strategy. So on the day of the exam, you feel like you're in your comfort zone, right? You feel very similar to the way you did while you were studying throughout all those 10 weeks. All right. Let's take a volunteer on who wants to walk through our first question, implementing all the steps that I just shared with you. Go ahead and raise your digital hand. All right, come on now. Scared money don't make no money. Closed mouths don't get fed. Okay, there we go, Tracy. I appreciate you. All right, so
I'll do it. But when you said contracts is my worst subject. And I was like, why I gotta be contracts? So
perfect. I love it. Look, it's a good opportunity to learn. So look, what's the first step in our formula or our strategy? What are we gonna do first?
I wrote it down. Skim the answer choices.
All right, you got 5 to 10 seconds. That's it. 5 to 10 seconds, skim those answer choices and see if you can pinpoint which, well, I already told you it's contract, so you got that much going. See if you can figure out which topic is being tested.
Well, contracts, but whether it is or isn't a contract, so that's formation. And if there is a contract, enforceable tells me like statute of frauds or something like that.
Okay, so we got formation, maybe statute of frauds, and that's it. Okay, we're done, right? So now we go into the fact pattern. And look, Tracy and everybody, when you come up with something from that, you're not holding on tightly to that, right? Because there is a chance that we might be wrong. And again, with this soft skim, it could be a high chance. So again, this is just something to assist, but we don't want to hold on tightly to that. We're now going into this fact pattern fresh. I'm going to read the fact pattern and you can process it as I read it. Everybody, if you don't have it, look, I got mine, notepad, pen. We're going to diagram as we go through this question. Okay. All right, so here we go. Tracy, you writing with me? I don't see no pen. Okay. You got it right there. Okay, cool. There we go. Out of camera. I like it. All right. On June 1st, a wholesale company. So right there, I'm going WC wholesale company received a purchase order from a retailer. So now I'm adding retailer and I'm adding a line from retailer, an arrow pointing towards wholesale company, right? Because retailer gave it to them. In which the latter, got to translate that, in which the latter, which is the retailer, ordered 1,000 anti-recoil widgets for delivery no later than August 3rd at a delivered total price of $10,000. All right, that's a lot of details as to the terms of the agreement. I'm just going to process that for a second in a little bit, but I'm not going to focus on all that detail right now. So I'm going to go like, all right, I got 1,000 goods. There's these widgets. I don't know what those are, but I know those are goods. It's delivered in August. Cool. For a price of 10,000. Cool. So I'm going to just go ahead and write goods. I know where to come back if I need to look at the price again. This is the price as quoted in the wholesale company's current catalog. Cool. Both parties are merchants with respects to widgets of all types. So that's just telling me both parties are merchants. On June 2nd, Okay, so this is now the next day. The wholesale company mailed the retailer its own form from across the top of which the wholesale company's president had written, "We are pleased to accept your order." I'm going to pause here for a quick second. Tracy, we should start getting into a possible trigger here. What area of law, of contract law, is being triggered when the offeree has accepted by sending its own form?
You said what area of contract law?
When an offeree is accepting by sending an acceptance with their own form.
That's the battle of the forms. Section
That's
2.
that's the salt. Yeah, we're kind of building up. It's not 100% yet, but yes, it's building up to.
It also says that it says both parties were merchants. So for me, that also stuck out, the battle of the forms, because if they weren't merchants, then 2207 doesn't apply.
And we'll get to that. And that's just going to be part of the analysis, but both parties are merchants doesn't trigger anything. I'll tell you that right now. We don't want to read too much into anything, but when I read that line by itself, that's just giving me background. I'll see where it comes into play, but that alone is not it. And even what we have so far is sending your own form does not trigger battle of the forms. It's building the story for it, but battle of the forms requires the acceptance to have different terms. Let's see if it has that. "We are pleased to accept your order. This form contained the same terms as the retailer's form, except for an additional printed clause in the wholesale company's form that provided for a maximum liability of $100 for any breach of contract by the wholesale company." All right, so wholesale company sent their response. It was the same, except it wasn't the same. It had an additional clause. And then you could just put that additional clause in its own little bucket. You're just like, it was additional clause. Okay, what was the clause? It was essentially a maximum liability clause. And the details of it was $100 maximum for any breach. As of June 5th, when the retailer received the wholesale company's acceptance form, which of the following is an accurate statement concerning the legal relationship between the wholesale company and the retailer? So Tracy, even based off of this call of the question, it's tempting you. It's inviting you to go into the answer choices to see what's right. But we do not want to do that, right? So we have read the question. Next thing we do is pinpoint the specific topic and subject being tested. And it looks like we have all agreed and identified that this is, in fact, a battle of the forms question, right? So do you know battle of the forms like the back of your hand? Do you know that rule?
No.
No.
Well,
right?
I don't know it. I don't know it like the back of my hand.
Exactly. And that's my question.
Right.
So what are we going to do?
Like the back of my hand. So
hold on. So what are we going to do based off of my system?
Oh, we want to go to my outline.
We're going to go to the outline. I'm going to save you the trouble, and I'm going to bring up mine on the screen so we could use that. And we have with Legally Fit some amazing charts that break down difficult topics. So we're going to use that instead of.
I have a battle of the forms chart on my wall. We can use as well.
There we go. All right, hold on. Let's see. Battle of the forms, landscape. No, that's not the one I want. That's the one I want. Number 8. I like the dojo though. I like the war room. Got all the writing on the wall. That's a bar prepper right there. All right, so here we go. Here's battle of the forms. Here's a chart that we can all work through, right? So let's just quickly go through this. So first off, Tracy, does the UCC apply here?
CC does apply.
Because we are dealing with goods. All right. The acceptance is definite, seasonable, and has new terms. So did the wholesale company's acceptance, was it definite, meaning it had the same material terms, same price, quantity? Yes. Yep. Was it seasonable? Yes. This was sent the very next day. And did it have a new term?
Yes.
There we go. So the next question we ask ourselves is, was the expression of acceptance made expressly conditional on inclusion of the new term? So when the wholesale company gave this attempted acceptance, did they make it where it was expressly conditional on inclusion? And what was your answer there?
No.
No, because if we go back to that fact pattern, there was nothing stated to make it expressly conditional. You have to do something affirmative to say, I'm not going forward with this unless you agree on this maximum liability clause. They were silent as to any language on how serious this was. So you have to go with no, they did not make this expressly conditional. So that means, based off of our chart and our rules here, that means we now treat this attempted acceptance as what? An actual acceptance, right? So when you go to 22072, that means now we are treating this as an acceptance. If you went to 22073, you're treating it as a counteroffer. All right. So I want you and I want everybody else to take the steps now to go through the rest of this analysis on your own. Give a second to think. Don't think out loud. Everybody take just 1 minute to continue to look at this chart. And we're in 22072. And now we know there's a contract. We have to ask ourselves, is that maximum liability clause going to be included? Okay, is that maximum? Okay, so everybody go through the rules here, go through this chart, and take a second to see if it will be. Okay, Tracy, what you think?
They are not part of the, it is not part of the question of the contract.
So you're saying that the term is not going to be added to the contract? My question is, will the term be added? Yes or no?
Yes, it will be.
Okay, so Tracy's going with yes, it will be. Kayla, are you going with yes, it will be, or no, it won't be? Sin boldly. Where's your gut telling you? Just go with it.
So my gut is saying, since it's an additional term added to the contract, like they're saying, the
And
$100.
look, no analysis, because I'm gonna run through a couple people here. You gotta give me a yes or no. What's your gut telling you?
No.
No, not added. Okay, Christine.
They're not.
Yeah, I'm here.
Going with no. Dr. Tana.
I think yes.
We're going with yes. Hassan. Hassan. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, you're going with yes. And then last one, Carla.
Yes.
Look, you were struggling. Yes. I'll take it though. You gave it to me direct. So yes. All right. So look, somebody in here is wrong. We got some yeses and we got some nos. This is why Carla was saying a second ago, why you want to look up your rule, right? Because somebody is getting this wrong, even having the rule in front of them, right? So let's walk through the rest of this. Is the new term additional or different? Additional terms are those that are new. Different terms are those that conflict with something in the agreement. So you do need some of the other detail that would be in the outline here. This is assuming you know the difference between additional and different. And yes, this would be deemed an additional term. There was nothing mentioned in the original writing about maximum liability clause for this to conflict with. So then it says additional terms are added if there is express assent by the offeror or both parties are merchants. Carla, do we have express assent by the offeror here? Did the retailer expressly say, yes, I see that maximum liability clause and I'm cool with it?
No.
No. So we're relying on the both parties are merchants, which it clearly told us it was. No analysis really needed there. So it looks like the term will be added under this rule, but it says that there are 3 exceptions. The offeror limited acceptance, right? Offeror limits acceptance. That's where the offeror says in their original offer, you can only accept per these terms. There is no language as such that we had here. The next one is that the new term materially alters the contract. When you have a term that is like substantial, it's material, it really alters the contract, either because of surprise or hardship. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys all know this would likely be deemed something that does materially alter the contract. And then the next one is offer or reject within a reasonable amount of time. Here, there's no facts of saying, oh, I see that new term and I reject it. Okay, so we have both parties are merchants, but we have a new term that does materially alter. So therefore, the exception applies, and this term shall not be added. Let's go back to our question. And then I'm going to take, I see Tracy, keep that hand for me. Let me just walk you guys through the rest of this. So what we did is we identified the topic being tested. It was 2207 Battle of the Forms. We used our chart, but there's also this rule here, right? And this is basically just articulating what we just went through. This is your rule. The answer is that a contract is formed because it was not expressly conditional, right? But the term is unlikely to be added because a liability limitation clause materially alters the contract. So what is now what we do? First off, before I go any further, right? Let's go with Tracy. Tracy, any questions on how we got to that outcome and the application of the rule to the law? Excuse me, the law to the facts.
Yes. So when I said that both parties were merchants, it jumped out for me. You said that it didn't matter, and it does matter in this case.
Oh, Tracy, I didn't say that it did not. Tracy, I didn't
What?
say that it didn't matter. You said, you said both parties are merchants. And so I triggered UCC Battle of the Forms. And so what I told you is that you don't want to use that to trigger anything. So no, both parties are merchants does end up being a factor in the analysis, but you don't want to use it to trigger. I can give you another fact pattern where I say both parties are merchants and it could be completely irrelevant. Here it happened to be. So I just don't want you to trigger anything off of that alone.
Okay. The other question that I had was, how do we determine that it materially altered? It was because of the maximum liability of $100 and the contract was worth $10,000, right? Is that the material?
It's not because of that is worth 10,000. Right? You're just looking at the clause itself, right? And think of the concept. Does this materially alter the contract? What you have here is somebody saying that, yeah, like in the event of a lawsuit, this clause is going to determine the outcome no matter what the situation is. I'm not going to pay you anything more than $100. And I don't even think it's necessarily in relation to the fact that it's 10,000. Even if the contract was only for 5,000, I think just the idea of a maximum liability clause itself is something that alters the contract. So would be your takeaway from this, is that something like that. And this is what we call, everybody, threshold, right? Threshold adjustment. You now have something as an example of what meets this threshold type of test of material alteration. Not all rules are bright line tests, like clearly yes or no. Some things are like, oh, is it not? So now you have something to add to your arsenal of what is, and use that as a reference point when you see other questions.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. And then Carla, I know you were one of the other no's. So is it clear as to why now? I'm sorry, you're one of the yeses. Is it clear as to why it's a no?
Yeah, so my hesitancy was because I couldn't remember like what the term was, because I was stuck on that one exception, whether it would materially alter it or not. And so I was like, dang, is this something that would materially alter? And so, yeah, this helped.
There we go. So yeah, usually you'll have the fact pattern still in front of you, but yeah, we had to share screen. So yeah, I'll give you a pass on that. That makes sense. And yeah, because that's the whole thing, reading comprehension, you got to apply the facts to the rules. So there we go. Awesome. So like we have no other questions there. So what you do is you select the right answer choice. Now, the idea is we've done all the hard work, Tracy. So now what is the answer choice that matches the analysis that we just did?
D.
And there it is, right? So that's how simple it's supposed to be, right? When you do all the hard work, it's just that simple and easy. Pick the one that matches, is D, and I'm ready to move on. All right. Now, last thing we're going to do is that we got to take away and extract all the takeaways, right? When you feel like you might be ready to move on from this, like, oh, that was a tough one. Let me get to the next one so I can get one right. No, stay here and extract the patterns, extract the notes. So, what pattern can you create from this, Tracy, so that way you're better prepared for this question in the future?
What pattern? So the pattern that I would pull from it is you have the buyer and the seller. They both have forms.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have additional term where additional terms
are included in the offeree's form?
In the offeree, right? And where additional terms are included in the offeree's forms, unless it meets the 3 exceptions, then those terms are not part of the contract.
So good attempt. We're kind of like skipping a little steps. And I think at the end of the day, it's difficult because this is, again, now a complex area of the law. I think my focus would be on the critical questions here. So let me go ahead and show you now my example of it. The pattern: offeror sends offer for goods. Offeree responds with their own form that includes an additional term. So all that you did have. And then look, offeree's response did not contain any language making their acceptance expressly conditional. That was the next critical part there to take us down to 2072, right? And then the parties just started performing. So that was the sequence of events of what took place, right? And then my notes were, under the UCC, when this offeree's response form includes an additional term and the response does not include any language expressing a requirement, then the response was not made to be expressly conditional and the response is treated as an acceptance. And then look, Carla, Tracy, everybody, my special note for myself to establish this threshold is a liability limitation clause is a type of clause deemed to materially alter the contract. Liability limitation clause is a type of clause deemed to and cannot be added under the both parties or merchants rule. So the only way to, under these circumstances, add it is if there was express assent. There we go. Awesome. First question in the books. We're now moving on to the second question. I need my next volunteer. Oh, Kayla, how sweet of you. You're going to volunteer for me? Oh, that's great. Go ahead, skim the answer choices and tell me if anything is popping out. Oh, and really quickly, Tracy, remember I said you don't want to hold on too strong to when you skim the answer choices, what you think, because remember you said maybe formation, which it was a little bit of, but enforceability, you said maybe statute of frauds, and that didn't come up to be in place. So good, you didn't hold on to that. So I want to give you some kudos there. But all that to say, Kayla, go for it. Just anything pop out at you by skimming those answer choices.
Yes. So I'm skimming the answer choices. I'm going to take 5 to 10 seconds to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm coming up with modification. So what comes to mind: modification, parole evidence rules. So something had to be added that wasn't in the final.
Okay, look, hold up. And I'm gonna stop you right there because now you're starting to kind of anticipate. We don't want to do that, right? All I want you to do is say, look, I see modification in A, I see modification in C, right? I see consideration, which I know is associated with it. Okay, modification. That's it. That's it, right? Good. All right, so I'm gonna read, actually, yeah, I'm gonna read it. You kind of read along, do your own diagramming, but I'm not gonna do what I did with Tracy, right? The first time with you guys, I showed you what I do is reading comprehension. I dissect each sentence and build on top of my understanding. I'm gonna have you summarize for me what took place, but I'm just gonna read it all the way through. A landowner and a contractor entered into a written contract under which the contractor agreed to build a building and pave an adjacent sidewalk for the landowner at a price of $200,000. Later, while construction was proceeding, the landowner and the contractor entered into an oral modification under which the contractor was not obligated to pave the sidewalk, but would still be entitled to $200,000 upon completion. The contractor completed the building. The landowner, after discussions with his landscaper, demanded that the contractor pave the adjacent sidewalk. The contractor refused. Has the contractor breached the contract? All right. So again, take a quick second if needed, which I wouldn't be surprised if so, because it's actually a lot in this fact pattern, to read it and get it down. And so before we jump into any law, Kayla, can you have a little fun with it? Can you just simplify the scenario here, the fact pattern, like what's going on?
Yes, so the landowner and a contractor entered into a written contract. So the first thing that comes to mind is this is a contract for services, which will spark common law versus a contract for the sale of goods, which sparks UCC. So I'm looking at it as a service contract, so I'm gonna apply the common law.
Good. What's the contract for?
Services of building an adjacent sidewalk.
Period. Period or comma?
So I was rereading the fact pattern because you read it out loud, and so I have to like read it by myself first.
Oh, I got you. So go ahead and let's do it. Yeah, so go ahead and do it. So to go ahead, it's in the first sentence or on the second line. And yeah, go ahead and extract for me what is it for?
Okay, so the contract was to build a building and pave an adjacent sidewalk.
There we go. So it's for two things. It's for a building and it's for a sidewalk. All right, cool. And how much was that contract for?
200,000.
200,000. All right, so there we go. Build a building and pave a sidewalk, 200,000. Got it. It said later, while construction was proceeding, the landowner and the contractor entered into an oral modification. All right, so now you have the two parties coming together and agreeing to a modification. What was the modification?
That the contractor was not obligated to pave the sidewalk, but would still be entitled to 200,000 upon completion.
Okay, now I need you to put that in your own words for me. We got to make sense of this real quick. So what happened here, this modification?
So the contractor already had a pre-existing duty.
Okay, no. I'm not asking you to talk to me as Professor Aubrey. I'm asking you to talk to me as DeAndre, all right? Just your friend that like, okay, so what's going on with this modification?
So yeah, DeAndre, the contractor already was supposed to pave the sidewalk, but now they orally modified that he's not obligated to pave the sidewalk, but he'll still get the same amount of money that was originally contracted for.
There we go. That's what I need you to do, Kayla. I need you to say, hold up. Landowner's trying to come up here. He's about to get paid the same amount, and now the modification is for him to do less work. That's exactly the type of reading comprehension and just reading analysis that exactly I want you to do. Really good job there. All right, so that's what we have, right? And then I don't want us to form any opinion about it yet, right? Because we might be like, oh, that's not right. That is right. That's okay. You can get away with that. No, because we're going to go to our rule that's going to tell us here in a second. So no emotion comes in, guys. No analysis yet. We're just still getting the facts. The contractor completed the building. All right, so he did the building. So at that point, he's probably ready for his money. The landowner, after discussions with the landscaper, demanded that the contractor pave the adjacent sidewalk. So what did the Kayla, talk to me again? I'm DeAndre. What did what did the contractor end up doing?
So he finished just the building, but he didn't do the sidewalk because they modified it that he didn't have to. He would still get the money.
And then the contractor. It says the landowner, after discussions. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I messed up. I said, what did the contractor do? So what did the landowner do after that?
But then the landowner then double back saying that
exactly.
saying that to pave the sidewalk, even after the fact he told him he didn't have to do it.
And that's I love that you said double back. You call that an Indian, Indian giver. You could call that, whatever you want to call it, everybody, but you have to connect with like, okay, so now the landowner's trying to switch it up. He's trying to go back and say, you know what? I changed my mind. I do want you to do the sidewalk as well. Right. And so then now we got to figure out who's going to win. So again, without even going into the answer choices, what I need to figure out is one, was a contract formed? And two, what are the terms? Is the sidewalk going to be included or not? We know the sidewalk was included in the original agreement. This comes down to whether what was valid, Kayla.
So it comes down to, is it a valid contract?
Well, we already know that it was a valid contract for, ultimately, this is going to come down to whether this was a
modification.
Exactly. Because if it was modified, then he no longer has to do it. So this is now, we have pinpointed the specific subject being tested, and it is modification. All right. So I'm going to put it up here. You would otherwise go to your blueprint and read your rule. Just out of curiosity, I'm just going to do the first three faces that I see on my Brady Bunch Zoom screen here. Right. Tracy, what's your gut telling you? Yes or no? That's all I want. Yes or no? Modification valid?
No.
No. Carla, yes or no?
No.
And then Kayla, what's your gut telling you? Yes or no?
No.
All right, let's just see now if our gut is right. So it's good to do that, for a quick second, but you want to get rooted in your rule. Under the common law, a modification acts as a new contract and are only valid if there is additional or new consideration for both parties. Modern courts allow a modification of a common law contract without new consideration if. So there's an exception. So you need new consideration, but there's two exceptions. If the modification is fair and equitable in light of unforeseen circumstances, or if the modification was a compromise of an honest dispute about the legal duty owed. So we got to do a full analysis here, Kayla. First is our general rule. Here, was there additional consideration given for the modification for both parties?
No.
So it tells us our general rule is not met. So therefore, this is not a valid modification, but there are two exceptions. Do either of those exceptions apply in your intelligent opinion?
No.
All right, you're going with no. Final answer?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I love that you stuck to your guns because that is the answer. You got to sin boldly and good job. You passed the test. Okay, no modification because no consideration and no exception applies. So good. You can even sit with that again as an example, like, yeah, okay, so this is not an example of an honest dispute. There is no unforeseen circumstances here for that other exception. So we've done all the hard work now. All we have to do, I want you to pick the right answer choice, hopefully in like 5 seconds, because you just need to find what best matches the analysis that we just did. So here you go. Kayla.
So the question is, has the contractor breached the contract?
So you don't really necessarily need to, I mean, you can, but yeah, that's the call of the question. And now I want you to go in and just find the answer choice that matches that whole analysis you just did.
D.
And there you go. Didn't have time to second guess yourself. You didn't have time to be like, oh, hold up. What about A? What about B? You right? None of that. Go to your rule, do the analysis, select the right answer, the matching answer choice. And there you go. Awesome. All right, guys, we got one last question. Let's finish strong. All right. Oh, and pattern. We got to do a pattern real quick. So the pattern here is A and B enter into a contract. Parties later agree to modify the contract in a way that only benefits one. Right. So that's what you said, Kayla, in your own words, right? It was a modification, but it was only good for one side. And then, right, the disadvantaged party regrets this and tries to eliminate the modification. In your words, Kayla, which I loved, right? In your pattern, you could say when one person tries to double back, right, on what they agreed to in the modification, right? That's what happened. And so ultimately, we used our rules to work through this muddy situation. If you analyze your emotion here, Kayla, where is this question trying to take you? If you were to have an emotional response to this, who might you find for?
from an emotional standpoint, I would probably find for the landowner, because like we talked about it, and we had an oral modification and saying that you didn't have to do it.
And let me say this too, Greg. So that's where you're kind of leaning. Do you see how you can have an emotional pull to both sides? From the landowner's perspective, it's just like, well, you tried to, like, even though we agreed to it, like you was getting over on me because you were doing the same, getting paid the same amount of money for less work than what we originally agreed. Right. So from one perspective, you could feel for the landowner, but from the other side, right, some of us in here might have had an experience in contracting. We might have a contractor. You might say, hold up though. I didn't like get over on you. We agreed to it. You agreed to say we're only going to do this for the building now for 200,000. So why should you be able to go back on that? So you see, there could be an emotional pull towards the contractor as well. But that's why we don't want to use emotional pulls as ways to analyze these questions. We have to just go straight to our rule. That's our friend. That's what's going to tell us how to work through this scenario. So keep that in mind, everybody. Your rules are your friend. Okay. All right. So we got one last question. I want to see you guys all crush this last question. You have 2 minutes to answer. And now your objective is to use everything that I've taught you today on your own. Training wheels are off. I'm not going to help you to do this question. So I'm going to put the timer on. I'm getting a little extra couple seconds while I do that. All right, 2 minutes. Go ahead and begin. Okay. Got 30 seconds. Stay structured. Don't let that mind wander. Get the facts down. Find the rule. Apply the rule. All right, 2 minutes is up. Let's go ahead and pause there and let's see how we did. All right, so Kayla, what did you come up with as your answer choice?
When I'm skimming the answer choices, I came up with accept, like contract formation, acceptance.
A, B, C, or D. I just want
Okay. D.
D. Okay. Tracy.
C.
Carla.
C.
Okay. Hassan.
D.
D. All right. Dr.
Yes.
Tana.
I went with C.
Okay, so we got some C's, we got some D's. Only one of us can be right. Let's see what it is. Dr. Tana, I want to go to you, right? I want to go to you because you're not in bar prep. And I think this is a really good exercise on the power of patterns and the power of learning, right, from your experience. Did you see a pattern here that we've seen?
Yeah, it reminded me of question 1 with the battle.
Exactly. This is question number one. How similar to question number one do you think this is on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would say 8 to 9.
Yeah, this is really close.
Yeah.
And again, that other one, the mayor told you like dog and then the zookeeper, right? And it was just like, all right, this is a fun hypo, but ain't no questions like that on the bar, DeAndre. They got more complicated stuff, right? This is how it looks then more complicated, right? The first one was for anti-recoil widgets with wholesale company and retailer. And now we're dealing with buyer and seller with boxes of nails at $3 a box and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you simplify this fact pattern, right, and you look at it, you have a situation where there are two forms. The seller mailed the buyer a signed form as an acceptance, acknowledging that he agreed to the buyer's terms. And did he include additional terms here, Dr. Tana?
On the return, yeah.
And what was that additional term?
That they will have disputes regarding quality shall be arbitrated.
All right, an arbitration clause. So we go through the same analysis. We already go through the preliminary ones. Those are straightforward. The main question is then, was the expression of acceptance made expressly conditional on inclusion of this new term? And what's your answer there?
No, I don't think so.
It just like the first one, there was no language that said anything like, I'm not going forward with this unless you agree to this new arbitration clause. So no. So that means this is treated as an acceptance. Then we go through our analysis, additional term or different term. This is additional. There's two ways for the additional term to be added. It's either express assent. Do we have express assent here?
No.
Or both parties are merchants. Are both parties merchants?
Yes.
Both parties are merchants. Do any of the exceptions apply?
Material alteration.
So you have to consider, again, this non-bright line test. The other two exceptions are bright line, right? Offeror limited acceptance, right? Either the original offer limited acceptance or it didn't. The third one is the offeree expressly rejected that term. So that would be the other person saying, hey, I saw that arbitration clause, I reject it. Those are bright line. The middle one, material alteration, it's gray. So you just need to analyze and use previous examples to help you. The previous example was a liability limitation clause, and that was yes. So Dr. Tana, you're going with arbitration clause is also a yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that is your analysis. I love that analysis. I'm going to agree with you. So now what you have to do is go into the answer choices and find the best matching answer. Now, having gone through that analysis together, are you still sticking with your original choice? And if so, yeah, or tell me which choice you're going with again. Remind me what side you were on.
I'm still on C.
Okay, and the answer is C. A contract was formed. So it says here, right? What is the best advice the attorney can provide? So look how, this is how, when you get to the answer choices, right? You're still going to use that analysis we did to guide you to the right answer, even though this question is phrased kind of in a weird way. What's the best advice? A contract was formed when the seller mailed its acknowledgement, and the court must decide whether the arbitration term should be excluded as a material alteration. So we love that, right? Because it's going to the fact that we know this is triggering material alteration. I am leaning towards yes, but this is accurate. The court definitely must decide whether it is. So this summarizes it and reflects the analysis in the best way. D says no contract exists because the arbitration term in the seller's acknowledgement form created a counter offer. So who said D? Carla, did you say D?
No.
Oh, you said C? Huh? Who said D?
Kayla, I said D.
You said D. So Kayla, do we now see why this was not a counter offer? Do we see where we went wrong there?
Yeah, I guess the additional term is the disputes regarding quality shall be arbitrated. Like that tripped me up.
Yeah. And all you want to see that is that it's an additional term. But to determine if it's a counter offer or not comes down to was the expression of acceptance made expressly conditional on including that new term? In other words, when the seller sent that acknowledgement form, did they say, hey, I am not going forward with this deal unless you agree to this arbitration clause or some form of that? Or were they a little bit more relaxed about it? Like, hey, I'm going to throw this in here. Maybe they accept it. Maybe they don't. Cool. I'm more passive about it. Here we have to assume it's more passive because there was no language that gave that seriousness to it. So that's why it was not a counter offer. Yeah, Tracy, question?
So based on, I mean, I saw the pattern from question one, and I went with, you know, the material. I recognize the arbitration clause as possibly being a material alteration. Could you explain why A wasn't the right answer? I mean, I think I know why A wasn't the right answer,
Okay.
but
Let me see. A contract was formed pursuant to conduct when the buyer received the nails. Because what happens is that's not accurate, because conduct comes after the form being mailed. And the reality is, because it was not made expressly conditional, the contract was formed at the moment that that acknowledgement was sent.
Right. Okay.
So that's why it's just the acceptance happened earlier through the form.
Yeah, because A seemed like a lazier answer, if that makes sense to me. Like it was sort of like C jumped out as a more legally accurate answer. A seemed like if I halfway didn't know the rule, then I would go with A, because okay, performance, you know, he delivered it.
Exactly.
Like, you know,
Emotion.
it's like a lazy, not really emotion, but more of a lazy kind of, I halfway think I know some of this, but let's go with A. It sounds right. Just, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to C is like, I know the rule, he mailed the acknowledgement, and is the arbitration. It seems like a more deliberate analysis answer.
And what I want you to do realize is that it's not that it's a deliberate analysis. It's just an accurate analysis, because the only difference between A and C, right? Because they both say a court would exclude, or that one says a court would exclude it, right? So that part we say it will be correct, right? But it's the beginning part that's really inaccurate. A contract was formed pursuant to the contract. No, based off of the sequence of events, the contract was not formed here because of conduct. It was formed when they mailed it. So that's what what that really is. So awesome. All right, guys, let's go ahead and start to wrap up. Really good question. Dr. Tain, I want to give you some credit again for not even being in contracts and reviewing it here recently, going through that. And hopefully you and everybody, we could see the power of how you do questions and how you learn from it in a way to prepare you for the next one. And these are actually NCBE release questions, question 1 and question 3. And that's why, again, when you extract those patterns and see that, that's how that's going to guide you into getting those questions accurate and be able to get through them faster. All right. So we're going to end this session really quickly in the way that I always do, which is I want to hear from you all. What was your biggest takeaway? We'll just do 3 students. Let's start off with Kayla. Kayla, can you give me what was your biggest takeaway from the session, please?
Yes, so thank you so much, DeAndre, for this session. My biggest takeaway is you taught me how to approach MBE questions differently, to skim the answer choices, because I have recently joined a session where they were saying, like, read the call of the question first and then go into the fact pattern. But you taught me a different way, like skim the answer choices for 5 to 10 seconds, then go to the fact pattern. But the thing that's really making a big difference that I believe in my prep would be to try to figure out my answer first and then match it. So I love how you say, like, have the answer in your head and then match it. And even the fact that you mentioned, like, it's okay for us to pull out the rules and look at the rules, because that also helps with memorization. And if I look back, I think I really didn't know all the elements. Like, I was just doing tons of questions and not really reading, comprehending, and understanding the Black letter law. So this has been really helpful, and I'm going to implement the strategies that you taught. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a pleasure having you in the class. And one thing I want to add on to you and to everybody, and I think you did a good job once I pushed you into it, is have fun with these fact patterns, have fun with studying. So when you're reading that, you did such a great job, but just let me translate this, because what happens is now you can see that again when you see another fact pattern when you've translated it. So a really good job with that, and continue to do that, right? I like to treat these fact patterns as, again, these little mini stories. And again, look, we can't get lost in them. We can't add facts and do, so we don't want to get crazy, but yeah, we can put this in everyday language to break it down like, oh, okay, so this is what's going on. So that way you can actually connect the scenario to the outcome. So really good job today. That was a really great takeaway. Dr. Tana, how about you? What was your takeaway from today?
Sorry. I think for me, it was great to just have a refresher of MBEs, and then to think about how I can approach those going into next semester when I get into finals, and also over the summer as I'm doing more practice ones to use this as a different way to approach them. Like Kayla said, I was always taught to look at the call of the question, then the fact pattern, and then go from there. And so I like this approach where you can look at the questions and kind of assess like, okay, what are they testing here? Like what's being tested?
Yes. And so out of the strategy, was there anything that was novel that you weren't doing before that you're going to start doing now?
Not looking at the question, at the answers. That wasn't an approach. The theory behind it was that it's going to try and lead you into thinking that you know what they're asking. And so not using the questions as a tool was the approach that I've been doing, but I like this approach better.
Good. Awesome. All right. And let's go with just one last one before we head out. And Tracy, let's hear from you. What was your takeaway?
My takeaway was definitely the skimming the answer choices. You know, when I'm a retaker as well. So, you know, you get all sorts of advice about read the call of the question, read this, you know, just go into the fact pattern. And so I feel like this is the approach that you have is most helpful of the different pieces of advice that I've gotten. So.
Good. All right. And have fun with implementing. I'm excited. So yeah, feel free to email me. You know, I'll put my email in the chat here so you guys can see it. I would love to hear just like how this goes once you guys all implement it. And again, hopefully you will all see the improvement, not only in your score, but also just like, oh, I'm getting it now, right? It should improve your quality and enjoyment of studying. And then I see I can't call you by your name. We got iPhone VKXX
Oh
R70.
yeah, sorry. My name is Di. I just have a question. What advice would you give me? Because I went to law school in London, and so I've started using Kaplan. I'm doing adaptive bar also. So I've just been mostly focusing on doing the questions. So what advice could you possibly give me? Because I don't know if I'm doing everything wrong, but I just want to, you know, get more advice from people. I've been asking everyone if they can give me advice because it's kind of different coming here trying to take the bar. And
yeah, I mean, is there anything, because it sounds a very open-ended, you know, so like advice in any particular way? Is there something specifically that you feel is not going right? Like,
do you think I should, I don't know if I should get like an LLM, or do you think I should just, because I got approved to take the bar exam, but I'm doing the prep courses and I'm really not understanding, or it's kind of challenging because I don't know if it's because I didn't go to law school in the States or what.
Okay,
so now I'm
absolutely.
Just confused.
Well, first advice I'm going to give you is that you should ditch those other ones and make sure you get legally fit. Because yeah, our bar prep company is designed in a way to really help with just what you're saying, where it's like, I need to actually understand the law. So if you're coming over from another country, right, like a student in California, or a student that went to school in the States, they can get by with the Barbary or Kaplan. If they already had a foundational understanding, sure. It's not going to be as great, right, in my opinion, as the legally fit course, but what you're going to really get is that ability to really understand the law. So the LLM programs, I don't think you need to do that. Right. And a lot of times LLM programs, they're kind of like, oh, international students come here and we'll get you ready for the bar. But it's only for 1 year and you hardly take most of the courses that are even actually tested on the bar. So I think it's just like another way to get that American degree, but it doesn't really do the good job of preparing you. So you just need the proper course that's going to help guide you into this exam. And to your point, it just sounds like you're not getting enough of what you need from Kaplan and Adaptive Bar, with those being your only resources. So yeah, whether it's legally fit or do your due diligence, if you want to find something else, you have to just find the right resource that's going to really kind of take you through learning all these laws and practicing it and getting ready for this exam. Because as you can hear, this exam is very hard for even those that graduated from American law schools, let alone coming in and not really having that background in American jurisprudence. So that would be my advice. And definitely, if you want to, my email is in there. Feel free to email us, and we could talk more about, you know, are you studying for the upcoming July exam? Or are you further out?
I'm studying for the upcoming July exam. I've been studying since May, so, and it's still kind of difficult for me. So I need to find another tactic as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you want to put your phone number in the chat, either I or one of our team members can give you a call sometime today, so we could talk in more detail about that. All right. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Legally Fit Bar Prep is awesome. It's so much easier to comprehend. The resources are great too. I appreciate the plug. Yes, guys. So we're here to help. Yeah. Once you get your hands on our materials, you'll truly see. I was a first generation minority student going through law school. I was wet behind the ears. I had no idea what law school was or what to expect, no prior experience. And for me to do well, as you kind of saw what we did today, I had to translate this. I had to create systems and strategies to make it through this completely new environment. And so that is what I have created and passed along through our program. So anybody looking for an advanced program, one that's a little bit more hands-on, one that has materials that go an extra step in explaining things, right? If you are watching lecture videos and you're walking out of those videos like, I'm still confused, I still don't know the law, right? There are other resources like Legally Fit that do a good job at actually breaking it down so you feel more comfortable and confident going into actual practice questions like essays and MBE. All right, so I got your information in there. I think that does it for us, everybody. Oh, Kayla, I'm sorry, you had your hand up.
One quick question: do you plan to do an essay strategy session?
We did one already. I'm not sure if it was recorded, but or if we have it publicly available. But go ahead and put your email in the chat, and we'll see if we can hook you up with a recording of a video of that we've done before.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, everybody. Again, kudos to you all for showing up on a Saturday for 2 hours and 10 minutes to invest in your success. I hope you guys all the best, or wish you all the best with any upcoming exams that you guys are going to be taking. This was a great session. Thank you guys for your energy and participation. And yeah, I hope to see you all soon and on the other side of this bar exam. Take care.
Bye, DeAndre. Thank you. Fabulous
You're welcome.
as always.